Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Follick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, wellness, COVID, emergency management, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Follick there. I'm easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Couple of quick announcements. The continuity and resilience today. I was looking at the wrong page there. I almost said the wrong thing. Continuity Resilience Today conference, November 16th and 17th in Toronto. I will be there broadcasting live with my colleague, James Green. Look for us. Hopefully you'll attend that conference. And my guest will actually be there today, and or shouldn't say today, we'll be there for the conference on those days. So it'll be great to see her again. And November 2nd and 3rd, I will be co-presenting a keynote speech with Margaret Millett at the BCI conference in London, England. So I'm looking forward to going home for a little while and visiting family. Now, I mentioned CRT. After 3+ years, I guess it's been, I will be able to see Regina Phelps. Regina, yes. Welcome back.
Oh, Alex, I'm so excited. I'm going to be able to see you for real instead of this Zoom thing we've been doing for a long time, it seems. A
long time.
I must have been DRJ in September of 2019.
That was it. That was the last time. And now we're in September, right now we're recording September, 2022. So, right. It's been quite a while.
It has been quite a while. In fact, we just had DRJ.
You did, yeah.
Ago. It was great.
Yeah, I wish I could have attended that one, but I had a couple of other things I had to attend to. Otherwise, I'd love to be there. But I'm already looking at, there's a strong possibility I will be there next year.
Oh, great.
I don't know about presenting, but live broadcast again.
Sign me up.
I'll be talking with James and with Bob Arnold. Hey, shout out to Bob and everyone at DRJ. So we'll see what's going to happen there.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Super. Great.
So you're back for our September update, and we're going to turn things around this month. Usually we open up and start talking about COVID and smallpox and some of the other things that are going on in the world. And unfortunately, there's so much of that happening.
I know.
We never get to some of the other things we want to talk about. So we're going to flip it around this month, and we're going to start with the end.
Yes. And I want to say to all of our listeners who's been listening to us talk about diseases for, I don't know, since April of 2020, probably. It's not that we are thinking, certainly I am thinking, that the pandemic is over and we don't have to worry about it any longer, or for that matter, any of the other diseases I've been talking about lately. But it's simply the idea that we spend so much time talking about that, we never get to some of the other interesting things we'd like to chat about. So we thought we would start first with the interesting things, and then with the time remaining, talk about the status of the pandemic, etc. So I think that's going to be our plan of attack.
Good, because where we're going to start today, we've already had to drop twice, right? Twice, I think.
Right.
Because we run out of time, we never get to it.
Right. I know, it's kind of embarrassing. Like, we're going to talk about this and then we never talk about it, right?
Yep. And our topic is shifting baselines.
Baselines.
Because we never got to it, we mentioned it a couple of times, but never really got to it. Can you refresh our memories? What do you mean by shifting baselines?
Oh, what a great lead in. I'm going to start with a deck of slides, as of course you know that I like to do. This term actually really came out of the environmental movement. I'd like to say that I was actually a creative person and actually made this up, but I didn't. And essentially this slide kind of shows pictorially what the idea of shifting baselines mean. And if you look at the population of fish, for example, starting on the left-hand side, what you'll see is that as time moves on a time continuum, there is less and less and less and less. And that's really the genesis of what the shifting baselines idea means. Essentially, what it is failure to notice change over time. And I have to say that we have certainly seen that in my career, and certainly I'm sure in yours as well. Our firm has been in practice since 1982, so this is our 40th year. And I can tell you years ago when I first started my business that there weren't very many crises on a regular basis. But I can recall starting in the early 80s that there were increasingly more earthquakes that started to affect. There was one in 83, one in 85, and then 87, and then 89 and 91. Those were all in the western part of the United States. Also, that was Mexico City. And every time there was another one that was like, oh my gosh, look how terrible this is. And then there were other crises that occurred into the 90s. And of course, we had 9/11. And then what happened is that since really about 2000, 2001, there have been many hurricanes, earthquakes. In America, we've had thousands of workplace shootings and active shooters and mass shootings. There's been so many things going on that, frankly, every day seems to have something. And so when you think about it, we have kind of been desensitized to the fact that we have so many crises. And that's really something to think about. So this was originally out of the environmental movement. It was coined in 1995, but it actually makes sense for what we do. And now I think what you look at is that we have survived the great 100-year pandemic, and yet we have gone through all of these things. And many of my clients are actually saying, okay, well, what else could happen? We are so prepared. We're all ready. Why should we spend any money, any time, any energy on business continuity, crisis management? Because look at what we're doing. We're doing such a great job. And I think what happens is that puts us in a pretty awkward situation. So again, that's kind of the idea pictorially of a shifting baseline. And the question people always ask me is, how does this apply to what we do for a living? And what I would say to all of us is that we need to really think about how our baseline, your executive's baseline, has actually changed. It used to be that one big thing, and we would be like, oh my gosh, lit up. Now what happens is there's been so many things, we are kind of worn down. And I think that's certainly been an issue that I've seen in my client population and the places that I work across the world. Have you seen any of that kind of desensitization at all in your work?
I think I would be a fool to say no, because with social media now, we get our news 24/7 faster than we ever did before. So we're constantly getting bombarded. Yeah. And if we responded to everything either on an emotional level or even community or organizational level to everything that happened, we would just drop dead from complete exhaustion and fatigue and anything else. So I think we have become desensitized. It's another shooting, another bomb, another natural disaster or something. You know, well, I saw that last week and the week before and the week before. So it just becomes part of a cycle where before we had social media, it was a case of you wouldn't hear anything until you picked up the paper in the morning. Or lucky enough to turn on the late night news before you went to bed. But now it's 24/7.
Right. And I think that bombardment of information, of crises, even when you're not personally impacted, it does not matter. We are just numb to what's going on around us. And I'd like to remind us, it's not just us that has that phenomenon going on. It's also all of the executives in your company and your organization. And remember, they're thinking like, well, hey, we're doing okay. Look at all this stuff that's going on, but we're doing okay. And so I think that's what I'm really trying to raise awareness across our industry. I've done a lot of speeches about this recently. I've done quite a few articles, and I'm trying to get us to think about, what are we going to say when our executive essentially asks us, what have you done for me lately? And this gets back to this, this metaphor of how to boil a frog. Have you ever heard of this story?
Yes, I did. Yeah. From the Big Bang Theory, believe it or not.
Ah, there you go. Well, see, interestingly enough, it's actually a fable. It's not true. Because if you stop and think about this, okay, a frog, if you put a frog in a nice little frog jacuzzi in a pan, right, with tepid water, and you turned it on and it got warmer and warmer. First of all, the frog's not going to hang out there in that pot of water being observed by you. Secondarily, as it gets warmer, they're actually going to notice. They're very sensitive to temperature. And so they don't just sit there in the jacuzzi until they boil to death. But there is a fable that we believe that. But that also actually applies to the kind of work that we're talking about, because when you boil a frog, technically in the fable, what that means is that you get more and more complacent, and more used to it. And then all of a sudden something big happens and it's too late. You're not paying attention. So it's a little bit kind of like what I'm talking about. Because when your boss does ask you, what have you done for me lately? That's the key thing where the shifting baselines really comes into play because of this. I don't know about you in your organization that you're working in now, but in my clients across the world, we've had a zillion events, as we were just discussing. But yet, most of our clients, not counting the pandemic, most of them have not had a major activation in the course of a year, often in the course of several years. So then the executive says, well, we have all these things going on. We have this great program. When was the last time we activated? And you kind of fumble around going like, whoa, I don't know.
But then how are they defining activating?
Well, that's a great question.
Because you have, and we've had this conversation before, if you have proper incident management in place, and that are working with your help desk, and your book on crisis management and on cyber all talk about proactively doing things. So
right.
How are they identifying a major event? You could have been helping them for ages.
Right. And you know what, you get right to the problem, because most people describe the work that we do is simply ROI, return on investment. Return on investment implies that you actually had a major activation, and in the major activation, you saved the money. If you're doing a great job of planning and scoping and doing all of that, and you prevent it from ever happening, how do you prove ROI? You didn't have an activation. And so what my point is that if you build your entire program around a return on investment that you've built out of your BIA, your business impact analysis, looking at your RTOs, if you never really spun it up, how do you begin to justify your existence? Because you can backpedal and say, well, it would have cost that. Well, you don't know that. You don't know how much you would have spent. You don't know what it really would have cost, right? And so you're guessing, and you can't prove that to an executive. Says, okay, show me what you actually did in this incident. And if you pull out the ROI argument, you have lost, because there's no way you can prove that. And so that's really what I'm trying to get people to talk about. Because when you are asked this dreaded question about what the projected downtime was, blah, 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 and people ask you, when was the last time that happened and how much money did it cost us? You're going to lose the conversation. And that's really the point I'm trying to make with us, is that the work we do every single day is so important. But if you only speak about the work we do in ROI, return on investment, or wow, when the bad thing happens, you'll be glad we have this, you are barking up the wrong tree, because that doesn't speak to the value that we provide in our business, in our organization every single day. Which gets to a whole nother conversation, which is really what I'm always trying to get people to think about. Because if you look at the traditional ROI definition, it simply means return on investment. And so that is literally how much money did you save based on the outage. You can say, well, we would have spent this much, but you didn't spend that much. So how can you prove that? And I think I want to remind people, as the economy gets tighter around the world, and many countries are fearful about falling into a recession, I will tell you, having lived through a few of these before in the 40 years I've been in practice, that they're going to look at anything on the profit and loss statement, and they're going to point to something like continuity planning, crisis management, whatever, and say, okay, what is this doing for us right now, given the economy and where we can cut costs? It's going to be this, as it has been historically after the big recession in 2009, right after 9/11. Before that, there were other incidents in 1982 and 1991. And yeah, this is going to be like a repeat performance that I'm trying to have our folks avoid. And what I want people to think about is it the right metric for us to try and prove return on investment? And I want to argue that it's not. But I have another solution for that, which I think is actually a much better one because of the work that we do. And this is one of the things that I really want people to think about. There's no way you can demonstrate ROI in a BCM program unless you actually have had a serious outage. And then you can look at the money that would have been lost and how much you spent and how much it was worth. And most of my clients, I mean, I don't know, in your business that you're in right now, have you had actually a big activation where you spun up everything?
Not everything, no.
Yeah.
There's things that happen regionally. We just had Fiona go through on the
Right.
East Coast. So an office out that way, we knew we were closed, but you're not measuring ROI on that. And you're not activating the whole thing. You're
Right.
just activating a little piece, in Nova Scotia and PEI and Newfoundland.
Right. So you had all the plans in place. You did what you need to do. Did it cost you any money? Did you lose any money? Probably the answer overwhelmingly is probably not.
No, we didn't.
Right. Right. So that's sort of the conundrum that we're in. And so that's why I look at many vendors and people that sell stuff in our work, and they're always pushing ROI. And I just think it's the wrong argument. And I think what happens is that we are now in a situation where the risk appetite, as we've been discussing, because we have so many things going on, has gotten really large. And that's what the shifting baseline is that it's no longer one little thing that happens. It's many things that happen. And executives and us are all numb to the fact that this is going on. So if we can't really use ROI, which has been sort of the standard in our industry to measure how important our programs are, are there other options? And that's really what I think the issue is there are. Yeah.
And on that note, let's take a break because I know where you're going to go in your next couple of sentences. So let's take a break here before we jump on that topic.
Oh, good.
Okay.
All right.
We've come to the end of our first segment. We're talking with Regina Phelps about shifting baselines, and we will be right back. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.